What's going on, guys? Tower number 9 here, and today I am joined by Thomas, aka Envert, who is here to discuss his recent win at Endless Comics Win a Case tournament with his Leia aggression deck. So, how's it going, Thomas?
Good, man. Good. Yeah, there was about 40 players in that tournament, so it was a good tournament to take down.
Nice, congratulations. So, can you give us just like a quick summary of what that tournament was like? Just what the format was, what the overall, what the prizing was, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so it was three boxes to first, one box to second, I think, and then third through eighth got packs and other stuff. I could bring up the exact list, but it was something like that.
Gotcha.
It was about I think there was 36 people in total. It was a little strange because we didn't play the top eight cut. So it was the 36, we did 5 rounds, and then whoever had the best scoring at the end of the 5 rounds took it. So
Yeah.
they actually counted round losses and etc.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, so first match was Sabine and then Vader, Control Vader. Of course it was Green Bean. Uh and then three Bobas. All ECO. So there
Yeah,
was a lot of
interesting.
Boba players, of course, with the whole London tournament and the Super Showdown or wherever it was. A lot of Boba players and yeah, it was a good time.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to take us over here to look at the deck list that you posted over on SwooDB. So thank you for making your deck visible to the community. This is not something that people always do. So yeah, let's take a look here. So we have a Tarkintown Leia. Definitely an advocate for Tarkintown. I think it's a great base. Um, and then we have Spec Force Soldier, three Battlefield Marines, two Mon Mothmas, one Rebel Pathfinder, three Sabine Ran Explosives Artists, a classic card in the game, two Admiral Ackbars, three Echo Base Defender, three Fighters for Freedom, three Fleet Lieutenant, three K2SOs, three Guerrilla Attack Pods, a kind of standard space contingent for these sorts of decks with three X-Wings, three A-Wings, three Red 3s, and three Wing Leaders, and then a fair few events as well with two Metal Ceremony, two Heroic Sacrifice, two Rebel Assault, three for a cause I believe in, and a copy of U-Wing Reinforcement to be kind of the high end of the deck. So
Yep.
yeah, so this is just looking at this deck list, I can already kind of tell this is a fairly aggressive deck. This is going to be a rebel aggro sort of deck, and it's very
Of
focused
course.
on, pushing damage to the enemy base. You do have some higher end units with the three attack pods, the U-Wing reinforcement. I see in the sideboard you have Mace Windu, who's another option there, as well as another copy of the U-Wing reinforcement. So there is some high end. It's not like one of those old Sabine decks where the maximum cost is 4 or whatever, but at the same
Right.
time, it's not the cost curve is as we can see here by this graph, the cost curve is pretty skewed towards 3 cost and below with just a smattering of cards above that.
Yeah. The thing is you're always needing a two drop, right? And it was crazy. Even in one of my Boba games, I won the round without a two drop. I had to claim turn one.
Wow,
And I still ended up taking
what was
it.
the situation there?
I remember having two K2SOs in hand, Admiral Ackbar and uh I think a red three and maybe a fighters. Something like that. It was an awful hand. I already mulliganed. But what ended up I do remember how I ended up winning the game was due to Admiral Ackbar. That card is insane.
Admiral
So a lot of
Akbar
people
can be a
took it
boss in
out
the
of
right
their list.
situation.
Yeah, a lot of people took it out of their list, but the thing is, when you have all these low cost units, right, you're flooding the board, and if they trade in with their boba, you Admiral Akbar for two or three to kill off their boba, because a lot of times you're gonna want to echo base. They swing into echo base with boba. You Admiral Akbar for three.
Mm.
So
Yeah, and let's get a highlight there on Admiral Ackbar. So 3 cost Rebel official ground unit in command heroism, 1/4 with restore 1, and when played you may deal damage to a unit equal to the number of units you control in its arena. So like Thomas says, if you have a lot of small units, this guy can actually be hitting pretty hard and then also giving you another unit that you can potentially then buff with cards like, Fleet Lieutenant, Wing Leader, Heroic Sacrifice, Rebel Assault. You have a lot of stuff that synergizes with it and lets you do some extra damage with that, plus the restore helps in a race.
Exactly.
What would you say your like favorite card or your most essential card of the deck is?
Could you take a guess?
I'm gonna guess for a cause I believe in.
Yeah, there you go. You got it. Yeah, it's the most broken card in the game. If you have a Fighters for Freedom, it does 5 damage for whatever reason. You cannot miss in this deck. There is no way to miss.
Yeah, I
Um,
noticed that I noticed that before we started doing this doing the interview, I was looking at your deck list and I noticed that it had 100% heroism density in main deck. In main deck, you do
yep,
have the wolf and the fang fighter in the sideboard, but
correct.
your default for a cause is 100% hit chance. Reveal the top 4 of your cards of your deck for each heroism card revealed this way, which will be 4 every time, 1 damage to the enemy base. So three cost for 4 damage, pretty good. And you get that filtering to get you towards more reach stuff and get rid of, X-wings or whatever when it's a little late for them if need be.
Exactly. Yeah. The four cause. I mean, the card, in my opinion, is a little overtuned. You get to choose what card you're gonna draw next, and on top of that, if you don't want the other cards, you throw them in the discard pile, and you're dealing 4 damage direct to base that they cannot stop. So
It's a very strong card. I actually think it's like kind of a warping card with how good it is,
yeah,
because I think a lot of the aggression decks end up not playing cards that might otherwise see more play because For a Cause is so good that it basically sidelines cards that aren't here. I mean, and I think a lot of these decks might play like, 3 to 6 cards that aren't heroism or something like that and accept like some
yeah,
small
correct.
chance. But even still, in the past, I feel like there was more of a reason to run cards like snapshot
Steadfast
reflexes.
Battalion. Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
snapshot. Oh, okay.
Steadfast Battalion is used in a lot of decks. I don't think it's as good for Leia because you don't have ECL, but a
You
lot of the
can't
Sabine
UCL,
green
right?
decks with the ECL have that ambush combo. Or even things like, Surprise Strike, Greedo, some of the like yellow aggressive cards for the Sabine Cunning decks. I think you have to really ask yourself, is this worth degrading my for a cause odds? And a lot of the times the answer is no. I mean, I think some of those decks might be like, yeah, I'm gonna play I'll play Surprise Strike, yeah, I'll play Greedo, but I'm not gonna play Sneak Attack, or I'm not gonna play Snapshot Reflexes, or some other card that's good in theory, but because it doesn't work with for a cause, it ends up getting kind of demoted.
Yeah, the reason I brought this instead of like Sabine Yellow or Sabine Cunning, is because I feel like when I play either Sabine Cunning or even a slower version, because of course I think this is the fastest aggro deck right now. I don't think anything can kill faster, more consistently that I have found. The Sabine Cunning one is very good against this deck. Like it wins because it runs the 30 health. It doesn't run the Jeddah City, so you're already in a race right there. You're already five health down. But the thing is,
Right.
when I play that Sabine Yellow, I feel like it is way easier for control decks to keep up.
Hmm.
Unlike this one, to where you're action cheating and you're taking initiative the entire game, with Leia's ability.
Yeah, so let's can we talk a bit about specifically your Boba matches? So you won 3
Yeah.
matches in a row against Boba Green. I think a lot of people would think Boba Green is the top deck, it's the deck to beat. And furthermore, I think some people, including myself maybe, would think that Boba Green has some solid plays against Leia with things like, ECL ambush Boba Disintegrator that can take out Leia
Yep.
immediately after she deploys. In the worst case scenario, you can like deploy Leia and they immediately play No Good to Me Dead and exhaust you and then ambush you with Boba Disintegrator, and that
And
hurts.
that did happen. That did
Oh,
all of those things happened.
and you
So
went on to win.
yeah, I'm gonna go over me and Joe's matchup. His name's Joe. He goes by Never Sober on Discord. Very good player, the best Boba player there. He took second.
Okay.
So he was my fourth match though, not my fifth. He played al almost perfectly. The only reason I won is because he forgot about my Tarkintown and I Tarkintown his Bosch because he was
Hmm.
depending on that 2 damage from an event. Only reason I
Yeah,
won.
so that he could like 2 for 1 you or whatever.
Yep, yep. So he was planning. I think he was planning on because he had three resources exact. So I'm pretty sure he was planning on waylaying with waylaying a unit and then boshing another one.
Hmm.
Uh, so the Boba matchups, I always start off with a space unit, or at least try to, because I want them to claim and Seventh Fleet into it. You have to get rid of their ECL instantly, and they're going to every time they are going to want to ECL. And that's how I got Joe both games. I made him use his ECL at the very beginning. Yeah, it puts me down, but the thing is, then I just go ground. I just forget about the air, go ground. That's the thing
And
about the Leia and Sabine decks, right? Once they go somewhere, you go the other place.
yeah, and then I suppose also if the opponent is hitting you with Seventh Fleet, like you said, now ECL is used up, and now Leia isn't living in fear of Boba Disintegrator,
Correct.
and there's a lot of stuff that they can't do to mess with you on the ground. And if they do go for the Consortium Star Viper play, you could always Tarkintown them to prevent them from having that restore, if they're
Yep.
even getting the initiative, which they might not have because Leia has that ability to push tempo.
Yep, exactly. A lot of times, so he did do the Consortium Star Viper. Um, I don't care about it because, like you said, you're getting initiative as Leia. If you're losing initiative as Leia, you're not using her ability. Your first action almost every turn should be using Leia ability if you have something on board, or if
Hmm.
you have two units on board. The only times you don't, of course, is if you can. Actually, on turn 4, when you bring Leia out, I will actually use her ability before bringing her out. Even if I have a Rebel Assault in hand, I'll just save Rebel Assault for another turn because you still want initiative for that next turn. Like you always want to claim. And Joe did play around, and I think I put this in one of the Discord sections somewhere. Joe actually did play around me claiming initiative. Like the one game he did take on me, he claimed with like 4 resources still up, which was like the only correct play. But for someone to be, to do that, first off, it's very risky. But if he didn't, I automatically won the game. So
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think that to a observer who doesn't know a lot about the game, it might seem to be very bad to take the initiative really early in the turn, but sometimes you actually have to do it or else your opponent is
yep,
going to hit you with something. It can be like your only chance. Sometimes it's like, "Oh, I'm going to miss out on playing like one or even two cards that I could have played this turn, but I have to do it in order to preempt my opponent's next move on the next turn."
exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that I've definitely noticed. And it's true at like many different levels of play, especially in these situations where one deck is very aggressive and can push a lot of damage to the base with just a few actions. Sometimes you really need to have the initiative to prevent them from doing that.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I'm pretty sure he took initiative right before I attacked with Leia. That was the last action I could do. But
Mm,
if he wouldn't have, I would have claimed, and then I would have killed him with Rebel Assault. And he played around Rebel Assault exactly, and it was perfect.
nice. And would you say that was one of the key differences between him? You mentioned that he was the best Boba player at the event, and you played against three Bobas. Would you say that like fighting you for the initiative was one of the key factors that made him a stronger opponent than the others?
Yes, and the fact that honestly, just all the plays he were making. I've played against him multiple times. Or not, I actually haven't played against him. This is my first time ever playing against him, but I've watched him play at locals and
Mm.
stuff. Um, and watching him play, I know he's a good player. The first Boba, I don't think he had all the cards. I think he might have been missing 2 Vaders or something, but you usually don't hit Vader anyways when in this matchup, so I don't think that really mattered. But my last Boba matchup, y- he's trading too much, right? I don't really, I guess I shouldn't say, how to lose in this deck. But Boba can beat Leia in a race if they do it properly, 100%. Like
Mm.
you should be hard mulliganing for like Boba's overwhelming barrages. Um, you know, the thing about like resupply and super laser tech, you don't really need those in this matchup. You need tempo, of course, or you're gonna get, hit in the face. Um,
Resupply can be an extremely risky card to play against aggro because you just spent turn
yeah.
two, which is an important turn, not advancing your board at all.
Yeah, exactly. The only time I would recommend resupply is if you have an overwhelming barrage in hand because you can bring out Boba, the following turn and then overwhelming barrage the entire
Hmm.
board. And
And
it
yeah,
and it requires me to play space because if I play anything on the ground, he's just going to trade it with Boba for free.
Looking at the deck list again, I note that you don't really have a lot of cards that are vulnerable to Super Laser Technician. So one thing
Yeah,
that I've noticed is that Super Laser Technician, well, resupply is super risky. Super Laser Technician can be okay to play into aggro, especially if the Super Laser Technician is defeating a 1 or 2 HP unit. So if you
yep,
like, and a good example of this is like some people ambush in Super Laser Technician with ECL. So if you have like ECL ambush super laser tech and it kills like a Lothal insurgent or a Greedo to take 2 units that some of the cunning decks play, that can
exactly.
actually be really good for the super laser tech player, especially with Boba where you get a resource back and then
Where
you
you
can
get
use
the
that to
recess.
potentially
Yep.
play out, maybe now that cartel spacer, that Viper probe droid, something else hits the board that can potentially set up a trade later on. Um, but this deck, if we look at these units here, it's like you have the Spec Force Soldier, but like that's not going to be your turn one play ideally. And
No,
then these other units, the Marine is 3 HP, Mon Mothma is 3 HP, the Pathfinder is 3 HP, Sabine is 3 HP. None of these
everything
are
is three
those,
and more.
yeah, none of those are those small early aggro units that just get picked off by the technician. And this also helps if you're playing against Make an Opening, of course, from
That
some of
is
the
the reason
vigilance
there's no
decks.
2 HP units. That is the
Yeah.
exact reason make it because a lot of people have been teching that, and even in my Palpatine deck, um, make it opening is just a staple versus like crafty smugglers, lothal insurgent, like you said, uh, the wolves, even wolf, anything 2 health. It's an insane card.
Yeah, this might sound quite strange to some of the viewers, but one thing that I've noticed is that units that are like 3-1 or 3-2 are actually not very aggro in this game necessarily because they are vulnerable to those plays. The Super Laser Tech, the Make an Opening, 1 HP units are vulnerable to ISB Agent and to Vader and it almost seems to me like the aggro decks more want to run like a 2-3 than they do a 3-2,
Yep.
and the more control-oriented decks want to run the 3-2 in order to
Two.
trade with the aggro unit.
Exactly. And that's the issue with control, in my opinion, at the moment. They don't have enough early game as we do, right? So like they have Viper Probe Droid, which they're forced to run. They like even though it's a three, and that's the problem, it's a 3-2, right? So and they're forced to run it though because of Battlefield Marine, all these 3 health units. Um
Yeah,
and the
there's no
thing is
Battlefield Marine for villainy control decks. They end up having to play with the Viper Probe Droid to trade into the Marine or to Sabine Explosives Artist.
Yep. And then the only reason I think the only reason I put one Spec Force soldier instead of the three, because a lot of people have the three in there, is because it is only good in very, very certain matchups. And 9 out of 10 it's in the either mirror or the or another aggro deck to take out their Echo Base defender.
Hmm.
Because other than that, like Sentinel, like what is it, Cell Block Guard? It's the 3/3/3, like just kill it. It's not that big, and if you can even just get an experience token with Metal Ceremony, you can usually kill it. And I'm
Yeah,
always
Metal
Metal Ceremony
Ceremony
for
is
like
a
1 or 2.
okay. Metal Ceremony is actually a card I really like. So 0 cost Rebel event, give an experience token to each of up to 3 Rebel units that attack this phase. And you said you're often doing this for just 1 or 2.
Yeah, just 1 or 2 units, because the thing is if you're waiting till like 3, 4 units, it's just not enough. You
It's
you
not
need
worth
to
it.
protect your units while they're there, right? So a
I'm
lot.
with you on that. It's a situation for me where it's like if you're trying to live the dream and only play it for like the +3, I think you're going to get worse results than when you're using it with 2 units or even just with 1 unit in order to get that benefit in the right situation.
Exactly. I remember one of my hands versus one of the Bobas. I had a wing, and then like I had double. I had one ceremony in ceremony from Mulligan, and then I drew another one, and I'm like, well, whatever. So I a wing, attacked with a wing, metal ceremony, and then wing leadered it. And I was hitting for 7 with a wing.
That's crazy.
So
In some situations, like it kind of reminds me of my time playing Flesh and Blood TCG. There was a deck called Saber's Bolton in that game, and that game, like this one, has 3 maximum copies of a card in the deck. And there was a certain card that enabled a combo, and if you played all 3 of them in one turn, you basically won the game immediately. Like it didn't literally win the game
Zodia.
immediately, but it more or less would. And the really interesting thing about that deck is that one thing that made the deck much stronger and more consistent is being willing to combo off at two instead of three. Because if you played two of them, you usually wouldn't win the game, but it would have a huge shift in the game dynamic that would
Right.
kind of put you in the driver's seat. And if you waited every time to try to get all three, it would be very disadvantageous. And you would often get killed before doing your combo. But if you did it on two, you often put yourself in such an aggressive position that you were then able to win the game, even though your combo hadn't hit as hard. It had still like changed the dynamic. And I kind of think that Metal Ceremony can be similar. Not that Metal Ceremony wins the game immediately, but that if you're trying to hold it for the perfect situation, that might just end up getting your units removed. Sometimes what you need to do is use it on just two or even one unit to get past those breakpoints. So, if you use a Metal Ceremony on a single A-Wing, and that means that the Imperial Interceptor they were about to play can't kill your A-Wing in one hit, and you get another attack, it could very well be worth it.
Exactly. Yeah. And uh a lot of the times I'm not even wing leadering my units. I am wing leadering Leia almost
Right.
every
Yeah, yeah,
time
yeah.
trying to. It's very strong on Leia. Like the fact that she goes to what is it, 5'8", I think,
Yeah,
plays
5/8 and
around
then raid
every
one, so you
card
hit
in
for
the
six.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, so Wing Leader is a very cool card. 3 cost space unit, Rebel Vehicle Fighter, 2/1. When played, give 2 experience tokens to another friendly Rebel unit. And like you said, I think your leader is often the best target for Wing Leader. Not necessarily always, but Wing Leader on the leader means that a lot of removal that would be able to deal with those experience tokens on a unit just doesn't work. So, for instance, if you use Wing Leader on an A-Wing, they can potentially play Takedown and still kill you because you're at exact 5. If you use Wing Leader on any normal unit, not any non-leader unit, you could get waylaid. But if you use, they could play Vanquish. There are a bunch of removal cards that only affect non-leaders, but if you're using that Wing Leader on Leia, it becomes a lot harder for them to deal with the experience.
Exactly. And the biggest thing on the Boba matchup, I would always save a wing leader in hand if I had one, due to Surprise Strike Boba does 7.
Mm, yeah,
Can't deal
that's
with
a
8.
major threat.
No way to deal with 8.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And maybe they can put together multiple attacks or something to get you or whatever, but it's like at
At
that
that point,
point
I've
you
already
probably got your
planned.
attack in unless they exhausted you or whatever.
Yo.
Yeah.
Yeah, No Good to Me Dead's a fun card. No-
No Good to Me Dead is it's a very strong card. I was surprised when they previewed that. I was like, man, this is nasty. That to have this be a thing that you can do against an opposing leader, that is strong. But there are some strong cards in the game. Some Boobas aren't
Oh
even
yeah.
playing No Good to Me Dead these days. There have been some changes and stuff. Mhm. It's an
Yeah.
interesting world.
A lot of people sideboard it now. Sideboard No Good to Me. I've seen it in a lot of sideboards. I actually think it was in my opponent's sideboard, I'm pretty sure. I think it was in Joe's sideboard if I remember correctly. But No Good to Me Dead, he No Good to Me Dead twice on my Leia in one game.
Wow.
The game actually went, I think, to 9 resources, which is kind of insane for Leia. And
But
I'm pretty
but
sure
you managed to pull it
I
out.
ended up taking that game. Yeah.
Wow.
Um,
If you get those reach cards and hit them with K2 and for a cause and stuff, you can absolutely close out a game even if the opponent has total board control if you've done enough damage early on.
Well, if I remember correctly, Ewing is the reason I won that game.
Mm,
K2S, Fighters for Freedom, and then K2SO. So you get to deal the one,
spicy.
and
Yeah, and
then
then there's the
you know,
3 coming in once they clear K2.
yo,
So, what would you say the matchup you most want to play against is, and what's the matchup you least want to play against?
most Sabine red or Sabine green. Like it's usually an instant win because you're always claiming and you're way faster. I don't
Interesting.
think I've ever gotten a game taken me with Sabine green.
Okay.
Um, it's a pretty fair matchup, just win your dice roll, uh right, that's kind of the aggro
Win your dice roll, take
unit.
advantage of the
Yeah,
tempo that Leia gives you.
yeah. Also, like any green black blue deck, green black blue can't keep up. There's a million decks that try. I have tested because I'm a control player from Hearthstone. Like I played Hearthstone for 10 years. The only other TCG I've played. uh I love control. I played my palp deck when this game launched, built it, crafted it. It can't keep up with any
Okay.
aggro deck.
And what
You
and
know,
what do you least want to see?
The least is probably Boba, honestly. It's such a hard if they know how to play the matchup, it is a very, very hard game. Like I said with Joe, it was like it almost came down, luck, right? He didn't get his overwhelming barrage. If he got overwhelming barrage at any point in that game, I lost. And there's no way to play around overwhelming except for kill his units. So,
Yeah, so I mean,
um,
sometimes you can kill his units, or you can set something up, but it can be a very strong card, and especially if someone is proactive about trying to get the initiative and play it early in the turn or whatever, it can hit real hard. But hey,
yeah.
for your apparent worst matchup, you won three in a row to win the event, so it can't be
Yeah.
can't be all that bad.
No, yeah, I know. I've seen so there is a Iden red list that will completely stomp this deck. I'm sure it
Okay,
runs, the triple open fire, but I haven't actually seen anyone play it, so I wouldn't say I'm scared of it because no one plays it.
I
Uh
see.
but if I were to go into that, I think it would be very close to like a 100% loss. Like I'm sure it's
Interesting.
like a 90-10 because it runs all open fires. I think I have the list. It's very bad for me. It's
Okay,
perma board control.
gotcha. Okay. So then, anything else do you wanna share for the viewers before we wrap up?
Tarkintown is an insane base. Almost as good as ECL. I don't care what anyone says.
Hey, I'm with you on that, man. I recorded a whole video about how I think Rebel Aggro should be playing Tarkintown.
Yeah, it's gives you control as an aggro player. We didn't go over the sideboard that much. The Windu,
Oh,
I
that's a
want
good point. Yeah,
to.
let's take a quick look. So Mace Windu, you want to highlight here?
Yeah, so I actually did not have him in my sideboard in the tournament. I actually didn't sideboard the entire tournament. I didn't need to sideboard one game because my sideboard, as you could see, it's made for control, disabling Fang Fighters, Wolves, U-Wing, and Windu. It's all versus control. The reason Windu's in there versus control, a lot of the times, I tested this after the tournament. I ran Zeb, I think it's called Zeb Aurelios. Is
Yeah,
that his
Zeb
name?
Aurelius. I know that guy. Yeah.
So I had three copies of him instead. The thing is he's 5 health. So as you know, 5 health gets taken down.
Yeah.
And it's not the best. Windu, a lot of the times in testing, I was actually able to let them exhaust their resources because I attack first, right? So I attack,
Right.
they play their resource,
They
and
do
I'm able to
stuff. Then
Windu,
you bring
and
out
they can't do anything about it because they're out of resources.
cool.
So that
Little
card,
extra reach.
yeah, everyone else says it's the worst legendary thing in the game. I still think it is one of the worst, but it does give you the extra reach, like you said. It gives you a little bit extra reach, and then of course, Wolf disabling Fang is all for control. Blue
Right.
matchup, entrenched, etc.
Well,
And then
well, hey, thank you for coming on and sharing this with me, and congratulations on your win.
yeah, appreciate you.
All right, sounds good.